thing you built that was based on music videos does not show music videos, and no one knows about that anymore?
They were still playing when I left.
I get
what happened, you guys?
I get a little sad.
Yeah,
They saw the music television off the bottom of the logo, which, you know, it's... But
We can go back to...
I did love the logo on the internet. Did you see the logo on the internet where it had the MSAW and it had TF, the music? What the fuck happened to the music? It was...
We can go back to MTV in a bit, but I want to talk about what you're doing now. Okay, we'll go back and forth. So you guys built this amazing thing 30 plus years ago. You had great taste. You were really good at curating stuff and picking stuff out. So what did you learn building MTV that's applicable today? And then what did you have to sort of unlearn because it doesn't work anymore in a world where there's no longer any scarcity?
I would say never listen to people who tell you it's not going to work. I mean, we all have a contrarian side to our nature, I think. You know, when Bob put the band together in the beginning, it was very much a, like, it's not a real business, this talent isn't real talent, it's not going to, nobody's going to watch 3-minute programs. And I mean, I think, I love it now. It's just so inspired and exciting, and, you know, the fans are anointing the stars, and it's, in spite of, like, I think probably early skepticism, you can see, like, you know, the people on the top of the charts are YouTube stars now, coming off Billboard this week. The people that, you know, are making, you know, Vice is the talked about thing. We're in a world now where you can still build a brand, you can still have something to say, but you have to be as fluid and fast-moving and creative as the creators themselves, and that's thrilling.
I'm assuming it's much harder, though, right? I mean, if you guys wanted to break something 30 plus years ago, you kind of could break it, right?
Look, I think I'm going to add to Judy's because you asked the comment, and I think it goes a little deeper. If you say, what did we do, is we listened to the consumer. And what the consumer was in search of is the same thing the consumer's in search of today, which is total control over their lives. And the reason we started, the debate used to be at these cable shows was, is it going to be narrowcast or broadcast? Meaning, should one network have a little bit of everything, or should each network have only one thing and let the consumer be the programmer? And that was the big revelation. Before that, you had heard people would come to work on Monday and they go, God, I saw the worst show in the world on TV last night. Why'd you watch it? Well, because I wanted to watch TV. It was the best on. A programmer on NBC named Paul Klein had this theory called least objectionable programming. And he said, whatever's the least objectionable will win because the consumer wants to watch TV. And what we did is freed them from that. And in essence, we let the consumer put together their array of programming from a little bit of news from CNN, a little bit of music from us. They wanted kids stuff, sports stuff, etc. And today, we've gotten to the point now where you've sliced it way down. Back then, all news was like, wow, what choice. I can find it 24 hours a day. Today, I can find any brand of news and information I want. And so I think we're still on the same journey. We're still doing exactly the same thing. Technology just has allowed us to slice it and dice it slimmer and slimmer and give the consumer more and more control. I remember when video on demand came on, and I was at Time Warner, and then they started having this idea that there's going to be this magnetic storage, and actually you'll be able to simultaneously run, because back then pay-per-view was at 8 o'clock.
Right.
This movie starts at 10 o'clock, this movie starts, we have more channels, we can start it every 30 minutes. But the idea that I could fast forward and review, and when they first started, I can remember going, yeah, right. And we were up talking to IBM, and they were talking about, like, oh, boy, this is really pie in the sky.
This sounds great for a consumer. It sounds like a real challenge for someone who's trying to get something out to people. Any numbers?
I don't think so. I think that at the end of the day, the challenge is to connect what you have with the people who want it. I don't think you make people watch stuff. I don't think you manipulate people into watching it. I think we're doing, and by the way, I think this with advertising too, we're doing nothing more than connecting people who want it with people who have it. And we're just figuring out how you describe it so they can understand you want it. I mean, we built MTV. It was the first TV network ever that the brand was the TV network. Everything else, the brand was the show. You didn't know what network The Cosby Show was on. You loved The Cosby Show. And we said, we're going to create a network so people say, I'm tuning in to watch MTV. Don't even know what's on. I'm going to watch MTV. Then we did it again with Nickelodeon. I'm going to tune in and see Nickelodeon and find out what's on. And I think the challenge today is even greater to have a brand that people understand and they know what to expect when they get there.
Tom, you've now watched this now at MTV, and now you're participating in Vice. I mean, these guys are saying, look, it's the same thing. You just have to make an awesome product, and people will come to it. Is it that simple?
Well, it's not simple to do that, but that is the core competency I think that you need. And, you know, just to trade off Bob's point, when in 1980, the birth of cable TV, it was sort of the birth of the media brand. Media outlets weren't really brands, and they didn't have the same attitude and style and voice. And that serves so many cable networks really well. And I think that you get really good at it if you can make that connection with the consumer and build upon it and engage. And that process is just magnified now, and it's more difficult now because there's the other thing that we can count on, there's just more and more and more fragmentation. So, you know, just to use Vice as an example, they were able to develop a real authentic voice coming out of a basement in Montreal that resonated with young people. And that gives them a great advantage today. And they're on all these screens. And you know, if you're a consumer, that's a real shortcut for you. So, but you're not going to be any good, and no one's going to pay any attention to you if what you're doing doesn't have that engagement and resonance. And that's the ultimate skill, I think, in the media and entertainment business that'll never go away.
And I think going to Tom's point, you know, it's part of, okay, we got the content, and way back then it wasn't as fragmented, but it was very hard to market. Today, if 20 people love Vice, they'll tell 20 more people, they'll tell 20 more, and suddenly we got this marketing mechanism that you can't escape. And I look, by the way, at our company today, as an important metric for me as anything else is how many social followers do we have. When we did the iHeartRadio Music Awards on NBC a month ago, my first question was, how many social impressions did we have? Because to me, that was the measurement of whether we engaged people. And I'm looking at a lot of metrics I never thought I'd look at, because what I'm really trying to do is get a brand so exciting that I get people to recruit the other users for the product.
So everything you guys did in 1983, 1981 works today.
It was genius, wasn't it? It was like
Makes life
unbelievable.
easy.
Unbelievable.
Crack the code then.
Practical completely.
It's just way more difficult now, but people are succeeding at doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sort of the leanest, meanest speedboat up here with my two colleagues in my little company, but I think what's great about what I can do and what we can do is take Snapchat, which people love, and, you know, experiment and launch a series. There was a lot of experimenting and launching, and, you know, Bob nailed it. It was about, we felt there was somebody out there who's going to love this and want it. There was a tribe of people. And now look at the tribe. It's huge. And you can find them in lots of places. They still want a story, as people started out here. They still want talent. And I think we still curate talent. You have a light touch with that talent now. You collaborate with them. You help them level up their idea. And you can put it any place and find someone who's going to love it.
So you've got a million different places to put stuff and to experiment with, but you only have so much time, so much money. Along the same lines of sort of how do you adapt to the non-scarcity model, how do you figure out which of these platforms you want to really make a bet on? Because even to make a small bet, especially for you, Judy, but all of you guys, it takes time. A year ago, Secret was a hot app. Yesterday, it shut down. A month ago, everyone was very excited about Periscope and Meerkat. Now, we'll hear from those guys in a little bit, but now it seems we're not really quite clear what's going to happen with them. There's a lot of dubiousness about Snapchat a couple years ago, and now everyone assumes that's the real deal. At what point do you say this is a platform we really want to sort of invest time and energy trying out?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I don't have to worry about that, because I think, you know, we can try.
You try everything?
Any number. Well, we try almost everything, yes, absolutely. And you listen to, you know, you have an idea, you have a story. You know, we announced something today with Lily Singh, Superwoman. It's going to have VR all over it, Shane. And, you know, I mean, I think it's a
Do you want to explain who Superwoman is?
To
I know who she is, but I'm sure everyone else here might need a refresher.
Magnificent, you know, YouTube young woman who's going out globally on her version of a tour, and we'll be there with her, and she'll tell her story, and she calls it Unicorn Island. It's very positive, and it's going to be creative and fun, and I love enabling her like we did in the early 80s with, you know,
Market America.
the Buggles or anybody else. Or the audience, you know, those contests. We were always doing those insane contests. You know, I hate my miserable life, and, you know, one night stand with Journey, and that kind of stuff. You know, it was all an attempt to, like, lure in an audience.
And also,
yes,
the contests were not for people to play the contest or enter them. They were to define who we were.
Yeah.
But how long does something in this world need to exist before you're going to take? I mean, Meerkat was born in, I think, January. Right? Yik Yak may or may not be a thing. And when do you decide whether or not you're going to play with Yik Yak or any other platform?
Well, look, I think you play with every platform you can afford to play with. You know, I've been around too long. And what you discover is that no one can get it right anywhere near 100% of the time. The challenge is how many times are you at bat? And I think there's so much fear of a failure that people don't attempt enough. And I think the question is, how do you contain the cost so that you can attempt a lot? Because out of that, it's going to pop. By the way, when we did MTV, we were part of a company called Warner MX Satellite Entertainment Company. The big network was going to be the movie channel. We were a little network. By the way, after 4 years, we changed the name of the company to MTV Networks. And so you can't predict. But what you got to do is you got to throw a lot of it out there. You can only do it so long in your head or on a piece of paper or in a focus group or whatever you want to do. You got to throw it out there and see what happens. Sometimes things catch fire. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes for good reason. Sometimes for bad reason. But you just got to play.
You know, you don't have to be out there at day one. You can wait, and if you're attractive to one of these new platforms, be it like a YouTube or a Snapchat, they're going to want you, and you're going to want them. And you know, a lot of people have made great moves by being on. Go to Verizon and create some original content for their platform. You want to be on as many of them as you can, but you'd like you say, you want to pick the winners, and no sense being there day one. I don't think if you're an established company, you don't necessarily need to do that. They'll probably come knocking on your door. But if once they start knocking on doors, you want to be on the ground floor of whatever kind of partnerships they're putting together.
What also happens with data today is we've now been able to greatly increase our odds. I mean, Shane and I were talking about the example of FLAC. I think that broadcast for advertisers was sort of, you shot up, where's the biggest audience? On radio. Morning drive. I'll buy spots on morning drive because I'll reach everybody and somebody's going to fly through the FLAC and I'll hit one of them. Today, let's say it's a Pampers buyer. You say, okay, it's an 18 to 34-year-old woman. I can say, wow, I got a lot of those in morning drive. How cheap a price can I get for that spot on morning drive? The new way is to say, where is that person listening? And by the way, it turns out they're buying it between noon and 3 p.m., Monday through Wednesday. I'm going to concentrate my advertising noon through 3, Monday through Wednesday. And by the way, that spot turns out to be cheaper than the cheapest rate you could ever get for morning drive. Now you've sent a missile to them. Well, content is exactly the same thing. And all the stuff we're using for programmatic with data is also informing what programming we create and how we connect it to that audience.
How reliant are you guys on data for actual programming and creative decisions? In journalism, there's this existential question about whether you should be paying attention to statistics or going out and reporting the story, regardless of whether anyone wants to read it. I think that actually we're getting over that now. We want to make stuff people want to see. But how much are you guys relying on data to say, I don't know, I don't get that PewDiePie is a thing, but the numbers say it's a thing? And how much of it is still your gut?
Well, I know like for instance, we saw Grace Helbig when she was on My Damn Channel. And, aside from the fact that it was a growing channel, she has that thing, whatever that thing is, you could see it. And so, we worked with her and we did this great show, Hey USA with Condé Nast, and second season with Hilton. Now she's got a show on E! Some people want to level up. She would call it probably leveling up. It's a clever show. But that was taste and choice. There were lots of other people at the time, but there was something about her that, this is why you have, I keep getting these messages, please hold the mic to your mouth. You have people on your team and you think about this and you curate and you pick and you choose and you're not always right. But then later on, it's like Bob said, there's popularity in this.
Are you using your gut less, either because there's more data or because maybe you're farther removed from the core demographic?
I think more.
Use your gut more.
Yeah.
I think it is. Someone told me when I was a young programmer, and I always remembered, always used it. It's the mix of the math and the magic. I want to find out from all the data what's out there. I want to understand this consumer really
radio
well.
has famously been a programmed thing for years.
By the way, and by the way, the early MTV was informed a lot by radio. But when you think about the math and magic, okay, I know what's going on. Now I have to have some magic. I got to figure out. I got to take a bet. I got to say that person's got something. That's good. That's terrible style. That looks awful. We need to do a cut here. It's about the magic, and I think people tend to be one or the other. But I think the best organizations are when you have a nice balance of the two. The good news is today, with data flowing the way it is, almost everybody can have access to the math. Now, you need a good data scientist, I think of as a creative person, to figure out, wait a minute, I just saw a pattern here. I just saw a correlation that sort of reads this math as magic. and figures out something. Because what we're really in search of always is we're in search of an epiphany. If we can have the epiphany, we can change our business, and that's the way we turn it.
Has someone come to you guys recently and said, look, the data says this, or look, all the kids in Bushwick love this, let's do it, and you say, I don't get it, then we're going to pass, and then you've regretted it, or you've missed something?
I never say I don't get it, but yeah.
I'm going to remind you to hold the mic so they don't send you an angry note.
I'll hold the mic for you. I'll be your mic stand.
We found a great kid in Bushwick, Aquafina, and did a talk show with her. And she wasn't a big social rising star, and now she's getting sort of picked up by other people and doing more things. And
Bushwick's a bad example because these are all kids who would have been in the East Village 20 years ago. But something where, look, it doesn't make any sense to you, your staff or someone insists it works, and you said, no, it doesn't work. My gut says no.
You know, a whole percentage of what you're doing has to be that. I love that. I always listen to the staff. You listen to the consumer, you listen to the staff, and it isn't like what are the kids saying and doing. You pick it up, you pay attention, you look at what's going on, you see what people are talking about, you follow a conversation, and you know, you always have to make picks.
You know, I'll just say, because we're talking about youth brands here, I think it's really important for any kind of youth brand that has any real resonance that it is organic, that the people who work and live there are sort of on a crusade. They know this. They're the audience. So it's not like a business that was concocted in some boardroom. So just by osmosis, they know what's going on, and there's plenty of ideas coming in. And that's, I think, been the key really to the ongoing success of any kind of enduring media brand, is having the demo itself running the show with a few adults around, but basically that.
Well, actually, when we started MTV, we used to have a joke, no one over the age of 30 has any good ideas. And we always, and
that was hard because I was 30.
Yeah, exactly, we said that.
I only had like 6 months.
We kept, I think, and the culture of that company at the time any one of the three of us ran it, is we loaded it with new people, fresh people, who didn't know a damn thing about what we were doing, but had a brain and had taste and had ideas, and were not bashful about pushing them. And I think today, like I'm 61, so I clearly am not going to have the creative epiphany, but I spot people who do. And I'll spot somebody who's just, I mean, they may not have a powerful job, but they say something interesting, and it will cause me to pause and go, tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking there. And you just help people mine these ideas. And what I find in companies, and the reason big companies have so few ideas and small companies have a lot, is by the time a decision gets to me, it probably goes through 10 people. That means 10 people have to agree to send it to me. One person can say no. Mathematically, we stack no to yes 100 to 1.
Right, so you have that least objectionable idea working.
And so,
corporately.
and to me, if every great idea, out of 10 people, probably one person loves it and the other 9 are very nervous about it. So what we've done in our companies, we've started parallel decision making, where if you want a decision, you send it to everybody at once so everybody can be hearing the conversation so no one can kill it. The other thing we do is when people bring me an idea and they say, okay, we've all gone through this, we had a lot of, and here's what it is, one of the first questions I ask is, what did the dissenters say? And the first time I said it, they misunderstood what I was asking. They said, oh no, everybody agrees. And I go, well then you're not listening very much, because there's always a dissenter, and we should consider, at the time we make the decision, we consider the dissenting points of view too, because one of those may be brilliant. And you guys may be a little afraid of it, or you may not sense something, and I'm willing to throw my lot in with them sometimes to in search of the breakthrough idea, not the ordinary idea.
Can we talk, let's talk about MTV now. I heard someone was upset when we said this is sort of a faded brand, but it's not what it used to be. If for some reason you guys went back to Viacom, MTV Networks, MTV, do you think that's a brand that you could resuscitate today?
You know, I think that could be done.
How would you
you
do
know,
it?
MTV's in a difficult position because their core programming element, the music video, sort of moved online in the demand world, and here they are, a linear channel with 10. You know, if they were doing videos, 10 different shows an hour, and ratings-wise, if you're trying to get big ratings and have a business, it was a difficult road to hoe. But I wouldn't, you know, say that MTV's gone for good or anything.
How do you bring it back? How do you inject new life into it in a world where the video's gone, it's on YouTube and everywhere else, and the kind of programming that they specialized in is no longer as valuable. The reality stuff isn't as valuable today. What do you
Well, they're in a tough spot. One thing I'm glad I haven't really watched it much in the last 5 or 6 years, so I don't deal with this problem. But bringing back a, you know, viable, vibrant, young media brand isn't the easiest thing in the world. And it would take, and they may be doing this for all I know. I'm sure it's something that they think about day in and day out. And as they've seen you know, just the whole media revolution under them and digital kind of take away. I mean, they're sort of the canary in the coal mine, if you will, on linear TV. Any, you know, Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, MTV, where people will probably move to the on-demand world before anyone else. And I don't know what they'll do, but it's a problem to be conquered by some clever people who get in there and come up with a cohesive
You're
idea.
opting out. Do you guys want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, you know, probably this sounds like a lighter touch, but I was just sitting here thinking for 1 second. You know, it's tough to go from cool to uncool and back to cool. Justin Timberlake, NSYNC. Loads of people loved them, but they wouldn't have said. Then he invents himself.
Yep.
So, I mean, it can be done. And, you know, I think one of the things MTV suffered from, like a lot of companies, is it got really, really successful, really profitable, really like, you know, sort of Wall Street oriented and all that kind of thing. And maybe maybe it's the 20-person chain of like agreement. I used to think you have to hire people who could not be gainfully employed anywhere else. And so generally, I think it's about people. And, you know, I absolutely believe that's an enduring brand. I absolutely believe it has another act. I think you just have to have the right.
Yeah.
Well, look,
You got to be on a crusade, like Tom said. Crusade, belief, passion. I mean, that's what makes stuff happen in your
Reinvention's not uncommon.
Well, you know, look, I also think, look, MTV is a huge brand. It's one of the biggest brands in America today, in the world today. So, you know, when we say reinvent it, you know, we all have a vision of what we do. As CEOs, we're the keeper of the vision. I made it very important when I left MTV. People say, what do you think of MTV? I go, I don't watch it. Why don't I watch it? Because these are all my friends. And they're going to have their own vision of it. And in my head, I'm going to be saying, oh, no, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. Because we all tweak it the way we think it should go. And they're clearly going down a path that probably none of the three of us would take it down. But it's a path. And it can also be a wildly successful path. And it is. I mean, it would be silly to say MTV's not a fabulous network or fabulous brand, because it is. And we've been the steward of that brand at various times in our careers. And then you say, well, what else? If the question is, what else can it be? I think what you know, if I looked at MTV and said, what else can it be other than what it is today? It could be on a lot of different platforms. I think the difference between when we were around running this stuff in the early days and today is that things were very siloed. Today, I mean, I'll take iHeartRadio. When we do iHeartRadio, it means a lot of things. It means massive concerts and shows and events. It means the app. It means the radio stations. It means social. It means everything. And I think that's what you really do with a brand today, is you immerse it in every touch point you can find with the consumer, because what you're really trying to do is live with that consumer. You're trying to engage the consumer. And if you don't touch them everywhere they live, then you're a little crippled.
Tom, we might end up with you here in the last question. Shane, just on stage, not talking about his A&E deal, but maybe he'll talk about it tomorrow. But he's already he's doing HBO. Did it once a week. Now it's going to increase. Why take a brand that's come up through digital, gotten very, very big on digital, and go back to linear TV, which everyone's sort of predicting is going into decline? Why go to TV?
Well, it's not to be said that Vice is definitely going to do that, but hypothetically, when
he announces
would they do it? Why the hell would they want to do that? You know, at this point in time, the fact is their strategy is to be on as many screens as possible. They're still a big business in television. They've proven themselves to be competent producers. I mean, they're Emmy winners 2 seasons out, the first crack they made at TV. This is a digital-first brand. They have great aspirations, and they have the ability as talent magnets to bring in all kinds of people. And they've developed a lot of shows for television, and then, by the way, they sell them internationally. They do really well. They have channels in Canada. They have channels elsewhere. So they would look at, say, if there was something nice, it would be a place where you could create a lot of content, extend your brand. It plays on a lot of different screens, and you know, it feeds basically your overall machinery. So, were they to do it, it wouldn't be like the cornerstone of their business, but it would fit in there with HBO, which was HBO's really about Vice News. And they do a lot of other stuff. I mean, they've got a food channel called Munchies. It's off to a very good start. And if you look at any food show on television, they're all targeted to people kind of over 45 years.
Do they have enough programming to fill a linear TV channel, 6 or 12 hours a day?
Well, they're going to have to if they ever thought about doing it, you know. They know how. They already make a lot of programming every day now, and they're good curators. And I got to say, you asked me earlier if you have any great advice for them programming-wise. And to go back to what Judy and Bob were talking about, when you have a group of people with extremely good instincts, I mean, they kind of know what they can do. They know their voice. They created it. They did it themselves, and they have a very young staff. So they don't need a lot of advice on what to make. And it's quite an impressive operation.
I look forward to hearing more about that when and if they talk about it, maybe tomorrow. Thank you all for your time. It was so helpful. Thanks, Judy.